I'd like to welcome you all to our February board meeting and call this meeting to order. Mrs. Boyer will lead us in the pledge, and Mr. Clerk will give the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this opportunity we have to gather as a school board for the Shoal Unified School District. We are thankful for the circumstances in which bring us together. We're thankful for our teachers, for our students. We're thankful for our staff, our administrators. And we're thankful for those who are willing to sacrifice their time tonight to come and to participate in this board meeting. We pray that will guide us and direct us in our decisions. And as we strive to find what is and do what is best for this district, we pray that we will be inspired by thee and that will lead our discussion and lead us in our thoughts and our understanding so that we can make the best choices for this community. We are thankful for the pleasant circumstances in which we do meet in these buildings and the choice part of the state in which we're able to call home. We pray that thou will please bless it with moisture. Continue to allow that to fall upon our land as it is so desperately needed. We ask for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Motion to approve the agenda.
A motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 3.2, recognition of legendary staff members. Mr. Hosley.
Madam President, members of the board, if you go forward, want to want to say something this evening. Later on, we will be posting a video that we encourage everyone to look at. This evening we had a video presentation, and I thank Mrs. Marsh and Dr. Taylor for their efforts to recognize our staff this evening, who we are going to call our legendary staff. It was an expression of our love and an appreciation for you, our counselors. Unfortunately, technology being what technology is, we can't show that tonight. I'm going to work with the city to see if we can get it embedded somewhere into our council or our board meeting when they finalize the YouTube video for tonight's meeting, and we'll send it out to staff tomorrow. But I want you to know, I watched the video today, and I was moved because it showed our appreciation for you, our counselors. You've been rocks in this very difficult time as we've tried to navigate this thing called COVID and life at the same time. When they talk about social emotional learning, it's not just about the kids, right? All of us needed some sort of emotional help through this. And so we want to applaud you this evening and apologize that we weren't able to give you this video tribute that was so diligently put together and done in such a quality way. But I want to share on behalf of our staff, the staff of Shoal Unified School District, our appreciation for each of you and what you bring to the table. You have definitely made life a little bit more bearable for many of our students, for many of our staff. Your acts of kindness have been models for each of us on how we should act and treat one another. So thank you. Thank you for your dedication to our students and our staff. Counselors will forever hold a special place in each of our hearts, and I know it plays a special role in my heart. So I wanted to share that with you this evening on behalf of our staff, the governing board, and just let you know that we do appreciate what you bring to the table each and every day. We know it's not easy, but it is appreciated. And please look for that video. I would suggest you go into your office and close the door if you don't like crying in front of people. It is a pretty special tribute, and thank you for all those who participated in the making of that video. It's much appreciated. So with that, we'd like to recognize each of our counselors, and we'll just have you come up. And if each of you can come up, and then we can get a picture with the board, that would That would be wonderful. Do you have their certificates? Oh, they're over there. Madam President, would you mind calling them up one at a time? As they're coming forward, just for everyone's knowledge, this week is Counselor Appreciation Week, and so we love them.
Thank you.
Jody Gaskell. Missy Starkle.
With Missy and Katie coming up, we were very fortunate this last year to be awarded a grant that allowed us to bring these wonderful women into our Whipple Ranch in Nicholas Homestead, and we're forever grateful that the state made that available and that we were awarded that. So we're glad to have them there. If you come in front of the board, then we can get a picture. You might have to go to the back of the room, Randy. No, I just wanted to make sure they had it. Again, thank you very much to our counselors. Please, staff, look at your email, find that video. We appreciate you. Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys. Okay, item 3.3, conflict of interest statements. Is that Mr. Hosley or Vanessa?
Madam President, these are documents that are signed annually to provide the opportunity for you to declare. Obviously, we don't know what will come up later on, but to declare at this time whether you had a conflict of interest or anything of that nature. The document is in your thing, and you can sign or declare that conflict if you do have one at this time.
Don't have conflict? No. Okay, item 3.4, superintendent reports. Hosley.
Madam President, members of the board, I'd like to give my time this evening to Dr. Taylor to come up and share a little bit of a presentation on a program that he is spearheading in the district, and that's White Mountain Works. And I'll invite him to come up. As he's coming up, I'll just give a brief update. All of you know that the district office was on fire. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, you got to make light of something, right? But 6 o'clock in the morning, Monday, was that 2 weeks ago now? Yes, 2 weeks ago, the district office burned. It is the insurance is still evaluating, but the building as a whole is a complete loss. we are very fortunate that it looks like employee files and financial files were low impact areas. So that means we probably will recover almost all of them, if not all of them. And we're grateful for that. To clarify just some things so that people, you know how rumors get started. The fire did not start in the women's bathroom. It did not start by any heat source, like a heater or anything like that. The microwave didn't run for 3 days and then caused the fire on Monday morning. It was a mechanical unit that was in the attic. We don't know exactly the cause yet. The investigators can't get on those rafters because they're completely failed. So they had a cherry picker in today, and they'll have one in tomorrow evaluating what that is. But they do know that the source was from a mechanical unit up in the attic, whether that seized and then overheated and then combusted, or there was an electrical short. They still have yet to determine that officially with us yet, but that was where it was and kind of what happened. I want to share just a little tidbit where kind of means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to you as citizens of the United States of America, and we pledge allegiance to our flag. Our flag was in the middle of the district boardroom, which is the origin of the fire. It was above that. We have a TV that's similar to this in the district boardroom, and the face of the TV was melted off, and everything around it was completely destroyed. But we had a flag just like that American flag right there standing next to the TV. The eagle on top was completely melted, but the flag looked exactly like it does right there throughout that whole fire. It came out unscathed. The yellow was as bright as it is on that flag. We will be displaying that flag in our new district office whenever that comes to be in the next 6 months to a year. But it was an interesting symbolic image as you went in, and it was all gray and black and everything, and the flag of the United States stood clean and proud. So we're just wanted to share that as some neat tidbits. Dr. Taylor?
Madam President, members of the board, thank you for having me. Mr. Housley, I don't know if you can see in front of you what I see. Assume you do. I'll go through it kind of quickly. White Mountain Works is a workforce entry initiative that the Shola Unified School District is supporting, and its motto is connecting our students with your workforce experiences. Let's go ahead and keep going. Next. I'll remind others that we have a non-discriminatory clause in our operation, and we invite all to participate. Next. Our leadership team is grounded in a cross-section of those from around the community who can help us. We have tag teamed with Arizona at Work, Miss Susan Hilgard, the operations manager, and Nanette Montillo, the youth specialist. And we have other representations, not just from our district, like Shola High School and White Mountain Works, but we also have special populations through DES, Adjudicated Students through Navajo County Probation, and we also have a business liaison. Next. Our vision statement is unique. We got together and we thoughtfully realized the kind of demographic with whom we were working, and we poured over this, and this is what we came up with. We believe each student is valuable, unique, and imperfect. We commit to creating a safe environment for students to explore a career that develops their curiosity, skills, and interests, even if it means they struggle till they are successful. High-impact learning stems from real-world experiences, and we strive to invite the business community to join us in this worthwhile endeavor. That's what we stand for in everything we do. Next. The next couple slides are just, or this one is just an excerpt from the Career and Technical Education ADE website. You'll notice that I highlighted work-based learning, allows students to develop professional skills to enhance their employability. Next. I'll point out that it requires a higher level of interactivity, one that will provide a win-win situation for the student and the work site. Next. Our primary goal is very simple. We're going to connect a student with a business here in town. Next. The orange portion of this little diagram illustrates the sources where we will get students. The green represents the process or pathway for a business to participate. Our students come to us through a WMI referral or a Show Low High School referral, other school or walk-in, Arizona at Work referral, and adjudication referral in the court system. Our businesses, they come to us through Arizona at Work, and we have an email and a form, a Google form that they can fill out very simply, that if they do, they can participate. We've tried to remove all the obstacles and make the process very simple. Next. We have multiple kinds of students participating. I'll divide them into two categories, regular students and grant-based students. Let's take a look at regular students. In that, we would include career and technical education, NAVIT students, and high school or early college with a resume. Those three sort of areas of students would be classified as just our normal students who come through our program. Next. For CTE, you're familiar with many of the programs that we have here. We have education professions coming in the fall, and the ones with stars are available with industry credentials for our students. Next. We also work with NPC, coordinating NAVIT, and these classes are currently available for our students and come with the opportunity to be certified. Next. I'll simply draw your attention to the logos at the top. We tried to grab the logos of various high schools in our area. And the asterisk at the bottom basically says it's open to all Navajo County schools. I think once we get White Mountain Works solidified on a firm foundation where we understand the process well enough, we can be an informative partner. We'll invite the other schools to participate. We know that many of the area businesses want Blue Ridge and Snowflake and others to participate, and we want them too. They could come on board now if they'd like. But right now our focus has been to make sure we're learning the process ourselves and sort of working out the wrinkles just a little bit before we invite them, but they can participate at any time. Next. Our grant qualified students, which is our atypical student, fits into the following categories. If they're out of school, they're basic skills deficient, pregnant or parenting, they're a substance abuser or their parents are. They're low income, they have a documented disability, an IEP or 504, a homeless, runaway, or a foster child. If they fit one of those categories, and there are nuanced definitions of each of those, then they might qualify with an application and proper documentation for a grant through Arizona at Work, which allows us to provide very special opportunities for our students. They have resources and supports there in place that was a natural marriage between their organization and what they're trying to do and what the clientele we have available. Next. We have utilized the resources of Voc Rehab, which is Department of DES, Cindy Husk, although I'm not sure if she's still there. No, she's on her way out. And Teresa Bukowski will take over. But anytime we have a student who fits a particular documented disability, someone comes to us, they have resources almost identical where we can help them find job placement through this channel to them, and they'll take care of it from there. Next. When a court judge has a young person who the judge would like to see continue in school but realizes that this person's needs are a little different, they can court order a student to participate in some type of employment. Well, they can provide them to us. We work with the probation. We connect with businesses who agree and say, yes, I will work with a student who has been adjudicated, and they know that in advance. They're monitored weekly by the probation officer, and we can look after and communicate and dialogue with that person. It's interesting because there are resources in place for Arizona at Work through that same grant that will allow a business who is willing to take a chance on one of these at-risk students with financial backing. And I don't want to be inaccurate, but it does essentially come down to all or a portion of the salary of that individual can be paid through the grant if they qualify. Next. When a business wants to participate, they literally just send us an email. I send them a little form. It's a Google form, so it creates a little database for us. And we will try and onboard them. We're creating a database of all the businesses in the White Mountain area who would like to participate. And we have a little chart or graph that shows us the answers to these questions, at least some of these. Would you go to the next slide? We give them a little menu so they can tell us what they're looking for, a paid or unpaid internship, part or full-time work, whether they're willing to host a special needs student or some other thing. That little survey tells us a whole lot, and it simply, we will create that database so we know when we have a student what they're looking for. It could be summer employment or summer internship. The sky's the limit. They may just simply want or be open to having our students come through their business and take a tour. It is very non-threatening. We want to be business friendly. So at the very lowest of levels, we're okay with that. And at the very highest of levels, we're okay with that too. So any business should feel safe knowing that we're there to support them. They can actually screen and interview the individuals or candidates and choose for themselves. And then we have Dr. Abel as the liaison from the high school who regularly teaches soft skills in workshops, requires logs, and we don't want to remove them immediately from an environment if they're not succeeding, because as our vision statement alluded, we know our students are imperfect. And sometimes our kids in that imperfection, in that level of difficulty that they're in, they need a little patience, a little forbearance. At the same time, we need to respect the business and their prerogatives. We'll support them, reteach, and replace if necessary. Next. Our timeline is fairly on schedule. We knew that we'd be placing internships this month, and we'll start with this spring with our student signups and our initial placements for the fall, this coming fall. So we're on track to do that. Next. Our after screening process, we'll match them, we'll monitor them, and then we'll even have an exit plan. Our goal is to make sure that we're not just putting them into internships, but it's with a direction in mind. What will they do after they graduate? Next. This is a slide similar to the one I showed earlier. The Shoalo High School has roughly over 30 internships in its first cycle, and we have 8 or 9 placed as at-risk students, and most of those are paid. I'd like to just spend a minute in sharing you a couple of little highlights of things we've experienced recently to give you a little taste of what the White Mountain Works has to offer. This last week, we had the magistrate's office, Judge Shirley Patterson, interview one of our candidates. She came and sat down and was so impressed with her. She made this non-paid internship paid at 32 hours for a week because she's an online student. At the end of that cycle, if she's done well during her internship, she has or will have a full-time paid position with benefits immediately following graduation. That's kind of the flavor of some of the things we're seeing. Next slide. Here are some of the internships we have. Healthcare, we know that the ones in red, the ones we kind of lost because of COVID. I do not know if we can anticipate those in the fall because there are still restrictions and complications that are due to those as we move forward. It might be a year from this fall before we make any headway. At the same time, it's probably important to mention healthcare is still one of our largest and most the subject areas in which our students are interested. So we definitely want to provide them opportunities. Next. I have 3 slides just to show you a little sampling of what we've experienced recently with some quotes I'll take the opportunity to read. Red, who works in our facilities and transportation building, said, "I cannot say enough good things about this new mentor program. The staff in the 2 departments, automotive, locksmith, couldn't be more impressed with these students. The students are eager and excited to learn new skills and are looking to their futures in these fields." And Tom, who's the locksmith of the district, says this student, speaking of the one to the right, him working with him, has the potential and incentive to be my apprentice and replacement when I retire in the near future. It's interesting that someone like Tom, it's been reported, although he may not admit this, is that he's more excited about his job because he's teaching. And there's a certain satisfaction knowing that you're benefiting someone else and then watching them progress. And he's quite serious about this young man's potential of replacing him when he retires. And I think that's a nice story. Hope it happens. Next. We have several elementary teachers' assistants. Mrs. Hall, Principal Hall, said, one of my teachers told me it's a game changer. We have several students now going in as professional interns, as if they were there as teachers, teaching students, young students, and interacting with them and reading to them and working with their various skill sets. And we're excited to see them make that progress. These teachers, often overwhelmed by all these little children, could use the help, not just with perfunctory things like making copies or checking packets. They're doing real life teaching, and we're excited to have them on board. Next slide. We have one young gentleman who has received an internship as a security sound and Wi-Fi tech. I asked him today how he felt, and he said, it's a wonderful experience. It's a great experience. It's a great experience for me and others to learn about something we're interested in. He says it's fun. And that's actually a picture he sent me, although I couldn't quite make out his face, so the picture just cut it off. But that was the actual project he's working on there on the right. And that happened this last week. So you can see just the variety of things that are taking place, and we're only scratching the surface. Next. Here's the email address that we're hoping people, including businesses, are willing to email us and say, please send me the form. I'm interested in taking a look at what you have. We are flexible. We will make it happen. We'll make sure that you are supported in that experience. And as board members, I humbly ask that you will consider in your networks, asking around, seeing if there are people who are willing to take an internship. You and I both know that in-class learning is critical as a foundation. And at the same time, hands-on learning in the real world is inescapably the best. Mm-hmm. So please help us. I'd like to thank Mr. Housley for supporting this and seeing the vision of it early on. And I appreciate all you board members for all your support. Special things are taking place, and I offer my gratitude and can answer any questions if you have them.
I thank you for both yours and Mr. Housley's vision of this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of our students. And I'm grateful that we have this for those who fall into those categories that you explained. I just think it's a wonderful opportunity. And I thank you for your hard work and for helping to put this all together for our district.
I extend a hearty you're welcome, but not just on my behalf, but so many others.
Right, your whole
There's
team.
There's a great team of us trying to work for making it happen. And because we're new to it, but we're, as far as I know, one of the few who's even attempting it, they're watching us carefully. And I know that other counties are seeing if we can pull this off because they'll use our model to expand what's here to rural Arizona. So I thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
Further?
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you.
That's to Tom's excitement. I went to transportation today and he couldn't quit talking about it. He was just over the moon, and he said it 100 times. When I retire, he could take over for me. You know, so he is super excited about it.
Great experience for everyone. Item 3.5, call to the audience. Nothing? Item 3.6, future board agenda items. Have anything? No?
For the future board agenda items, I did. I just, after our meeting that we just had, I just decided to have on a future board agenda, hopefully next month, results from a survey of our staff, and hopefully that can be included on our agenda in the work session. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Item 4.1, discussion and approval of the 21-22 school calendar.
Madam President, we'd like to invite up Alex Snydering and Don Tomlinson to come up and share. They were participating in the calendar committee and raised their hand high and proud when we asked for someone to present. Actually, no, but they did it graciously. They were happy to come in and do that. And inside your board packet is their their slideshow that they'll be going through.
Is that what we need to pull up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't be, we'll have it embedded in the video, but it won't come up on the screen this evening.
We share it and it's done. We would like to begin by just discussing the process by which the calendar was created. So an initial survey was sent out to the staff and we took those results. Questions like, when do you want to start? Do you want to have fall break? When do you want fall break? We took those results and we kind of discussed them as a committee. The committee was consisted of K-12 certified and classified staff. So it was a great mix so that we could really discuss the needs for students. And the thing that I think we found best as we came through those discussions was the focus was on students. It was on students learning, students being safe, and completely student-centered. Do you have?
So there was some considerations that we had to go over when the initial survey went out and the start and ending date were presented to the staff. There were some things that we weren't aware of, which is ADE had changed it. If your 4-day week needs to be a minimum of 144 days. Mr. Housley, stop me if I'm wrong anywhere. And then we also needed to put in 3 snow days because my understanding is the distance learning wasn't going to be covered like it was this year. And quite frankly, a lot of people in the community, if you look at Facebook, they wanted a snow day back. They didn't want their kids working on distance learning. So when you have to account for those 144 days for students in the seat and for the snow days, we had to look at our start date and change it because of that, because we knew that the community would not want to go into June. So that's where, if you see from the slideshow, the first initial survey, good majority of staff wanted that later start date. But once we went back into our buildings and explained to staff that if we did have a later start date, we'd be ending in June, they're like, nope, no more. So they want, a good majority of our staff want to end.
The reason for the earlier start date, testing. We want to get as many instructional days in before testing to help kids be successful on that test than after testing. So that was another consideration for making the start date.
So after we had that initial meeting and we went over the requirement from the ADE and we took a look at the survey, then we went back and some of the community members built out a calendar. Don built out a really nice one that we just tweaked a little bit together as a committee. And we that's where the start date is going to be August 4th is what we came up with so that we could end that 26th of May. So, and then we had those 3 snow days in there also. So, and graduation day was really important. We wanted to make sure that graduation day fell and seniors could be done, not for them to have to come back. That's why the snow days are spread out in the last week of April and the first 2 weeks of May. So then once we did that, we sent it back out to the staff. And there's that next pie chart where 79% of the staff supported the calendar. And we had 20% who still wanted that later start date. But I think the more we explain it to them, they understood why the August 4th was a good thing.
Thank you for serving on the committee and for everybody else who
Yeah.
served. I think it was wonderful that you all collaborated together and came up with this, and I think it looked great. So thank you.
Wes was there with some of
Yes.
his staff, which I thought was good.
It was great.
And I think the greatest thing for me down at elementary is I got to see what Dawn and the high school, what they go through, right? And as we're working together as a K-12 school district.
Alex, do you have the committee members' names on your thing there? So I just give them a little shout out. They Tyler mentioned it at the work session, but they put in some time. Calendars aren't the most exciting things in the world, but they dug in and went right after it, and there was a lot of thoughtfulness in it. And one time I had to come in really late to the committee meeting, and they were having a really good debate on where to put the snow days and what order to use them in. And it was very difficult. The most comical was probably when we all had to try to count the number of days. And we counted them 15 times and got different dates, but
different answers.
different numbers.
Oh, Ben and Becky were there with us too, which was nice. And Sean was there with some of his, Ashley Robertson, Heather Douglas, Jeannie Blum, Jolynn Clark, she's back there today, Kyla Butler, Sean West, Tanya Butler, David Clark, Jeff Barnes, Tyler Yeager, Candace Helgenson, and Tyler's back there too. Evie was, I don't want to butcher Evie's.
Debbie Warnicki.
Happy.
So, and Evie.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank
for
you
all your
very
hard work.
much. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 21-22 calendar as presented.
I'll second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4.2, approval of gifted scope and sequence.
Madam President, members of the board, we needed to present to you this evening the scope and sequence for the gifted program according to, as it says there, the Arizona Department of Education Cycle 5 monitoring requires that we review, update, and receive board approval of the gifted scope and sequence. And so Mrs. Ramsey's prepared that for you this evening, and I bring it to you for your approval.
Are we reviewing it or are we just approving?
Yes, just
Okay.
approving it.
I'll make a motion to approve the gifted scope and sequence for 2021 as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Jamie. Item 4.3, approval of the 21-22 Sholo Junior High master schedule.
Madam President, members of the board, the sites work really hard, especially at the secondary level when it comes to master schedule, because it's very complex. I used to relate to it as a very mean Sudoku puzzle because it's very, very complex, and the junior highs work hard on theirs. They have it in front of you this evening for your approval and consideration.
You feel good about it, Mrs. Clark? Okay.
I guess one question I had so how does that work? Are there bells that some people ignore and then other bells that
Sometimes bells are always ringing.
just bells continuously? Is this my bell or not my bell? Is it, but it works out okay?
Yeah, I think it works out okay. Mrs. Clark can explain.
The way it kind of works with the sixth grade, it's only really a little bit disruptive in the afternoon, but the kids are usually kind of a little more awake, and so that morning bell breaks up kind of that block of time for them. But we've explored going without bells school-wide and running by the clock. That was something that my predecessor, Dr. Dorsett, had also experimented with. But I think for the most part, the sixth grade teachers are just awesome, and they just make it work. And
Right, they can roll with
the
it.
kids tune it out.
It's a much more pleasant bell than maybe we had when we were in school.
And so just so I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So a student would have, for example, English and social study all with the same teacher for one block?
So the sixth graders have that block. So math and science is a block.
With one
Social
teacher
studies
together as one block, so they're not changing classes as much.
Correct.
I love that.
Me too. The kids like it too. This is the same bell schedule we have currently.
Great.
And
been working
for
well.
the most part, the master schedule is the same. There's some notes in the memo about staffing and what that needed to look like this year, but we changed last year to try to provide a better transition for those incoming fifth graders because they leave kind of a happy family where they're with the same group all day long, and we were throwing them into the equivalency of a modern high school. So this schedule gives us that transitional year and helps kind of ease that transition to now I'm seeing instead of one, maybe 4 or 5 teachers in a day. And they weren't smiling when I first came in, and this year the kids seem to be happy and smiling. And last year we didn't get a good read because of COVID, we had to close. But this year I feel like we're really seeing some gains with kids feeling more comfortable at school.
Good. Thank you.
Mrs. Clark? We have a motion.
I'll motion.
Thanks, John.
I'll second. Sorry.
Go for it, Lemista, you were first.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.1, approval of resignations, retirements, and terminations. Mr. Housley.
Madam President, members of the board, this is the time of the year that we will see some of these come, and we'll probably see more in as we come up through the next month, but there are a number there for your consideration. I would ask for your approval of those resignations, retirements, and terminations. I would ask that, I'm sorry, I guess I got to get glasses. I'm sorry.
It happens.
That's hard to remember.
Age will get you.
I'm sorry. Hold on, just one second. Okay. With the exception of, I asked for your approval of these with the exception of there was a rescinded one that has a letter, and we'll consider that at a different.
I'd like to approve the list minus that name for approval of resignations, retirements, and terminations as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.2, approval of new hires, renewals, and transfers. Mr. Housley.
Madam President, members of the board, we propose that the following individuals be added to our staff. Tanner Flake, high school custodian, Michael Dole, a sub bus driver, Brian Phillips, a sub bus aide, Amanda Maxwell, child nutrition worker, and Marisol Vance, child nutrition worker, for your approval this evening.
All motion we approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.3, approval of substitutes. Mr. Housley.
We have 2 substitutes for your consideration. Just as a reminder, these are ESI employees, and we bring them on to work for us. So this is that approval, Karen Malcolm and Christopher Long, for your approval.
I'll make motion to approve substitutes as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.4, approval of stipends, volunteers, and event workers. Mr. Housley.
President, there's a number listed in our board book here and also available for public to see, but I do bring them to you this evening for your consideration.
All motion we approve 5.4.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5.5, consideration and approval of extension to Mr. Housley's superintendent contract.
I'd like to, are we going to discuss or can we motion about? We've done a lot of discussion on this.
Yeah.
Whatever you prefer.
I don't need to discuss it.
No.
I would make a motion to offer the superintendent a 3-year contract with the exact wording that we have in here, or as same contract that we've been on. Is that wordsmith okay?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that fails for a second.
Seems like it, yeah. Is there another motion?
I'll motion for a 2-year contract.
that motion, right? Okay, is there any other motion?
I know that my motion last month was not very popular, and I really pondered and tried to be thoughtful and trying to come up with a solution that I thought would be approved, would gain everybody's approval. I don't know if this will or not, but I would like to make a motion that we extend Mr. Housley's contract through June 30th of 2022. And but I would also propose that we meet in 6 months, the board members and Mr. Housley, and we see where we're going and how things are going, if we're moving in a positive direction, and set forth the goals and put them in place that we're hopefully going to establish next month. And at that point in time, in 6 months, review Mr. Housley's contract again and look at it at that point in time, whether or not we'd like to extend a 2 or 3 year contract at that time. That is my motion.
We legally do that, reevaluate your contract at that point, Mr. Housley. Is that a possibility?
I believe it's within the 18 months, is it not?
You can discuss a contract within 18 months of the termination of that contract.
Right.
So it would be within that time period.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other wording or anything that you would want to change in the current contract? I'm assuming that's what you're motioning, to have this basically the same contract, just change the terms of the contract.
Well, extending the contract for 1 year, basically.
Okay.
And then in 6 months, reevaluate along with Mr. Housley, go through how we feel collectively and collaboratively, all of us. And if we're going in the right direction and we're achieving hopefully a result that we determine as a board for our goals and Mr. Housley's superintendent goals as well. I look at it as a way of, Lemista and I are new on the board, and it does give us that kind of break-in period. And it also helps us to establish and make sure we're moving forward.
I will just, for the public's benefit, because the last time we discussed this, we were at the board retreat, and I don't think that members of the public were here. I know many of the principals were present at that. I don't know if they were there for that portion of the discussion, but I said in the retreat, I felt like, Mr. Housley's in his 5th year here, where he's finishing up his 5th year with Shoal Unified School District. And there's some things that I've been very impressed with the latter part of this last year. There's some things that I feel like we have work to do. And so I know that when Mr. Housley came to Shoal Unified School District, he did not want a 1-year contract. He wanted something a little bit more long-term, to give him a little bit more dependency and making sure that he was confident in moving his family into the community. And I don't see this contract, as far as this new one that Kelly has motioned for, as a anything like the 1-year contract discussion that happened 5 years ago. I think that we're in a completely different place as a district. I think with 2 new board members coming on and having that desire to get familiar with Mr. Housley and with the work and the direction that they want to move, I think it's completely appropriate for that. And I've shared with Mr. Housley and members of the board my feelings on the 1-year contract. I don't think that this is any way telling Mr. Housley that we're in the market for a new superintendent, or that it's a sign that we're trying to clean house or anything like that. I hope that that's not what the public or the staff takes from it, but I think that Kelly has done an excellent job as articulating why she wants a 1 year. I can definitely support that. And so with that, I'll second Kelly's motion for a 1-year contract for Mr. Housley, for his contract to be extended for 1 year.
Reevaluate it in October.
I'm fine with reevaluating in 6 months. I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So at this point, I think we should remind the public that Mr. Housley has 15 days to either notify us if he's willing to accept that or not. And if he's not, then we'll have to reconvene and figure it out from that point.
Okay. Item 6.1, discussion and possible suspension of policy GCBA. Mr. Housley.
Madam President, members of the board, this is a policy that is in place. It is concerning advancement, and as far as salary is concerned, when a staff member enters the district, there is a salary schedule in place. It's a stepless salary schedule. That means something to, when you say stepless, that means something to teachers that have been around for a long time, that have been a part of something that it has steps in it. So it's different than that. It's a stepless system. You are put into that based on points, based on your educational attainment, based on years of experience. Then those points are added up and you drop into the salary schedule, and that tells you where your base salary is. And that's where you begin your experience with Show schools. Once you begin that experience, you can receive additional consideration compensation as you complete 12 credits, college level, graduate level classes, either towards a degree or something that maybe the district went to you and said, we really need you to get classes in XYZ, and you go out and do those classes, and then that would qualify you for what is outlined in the policy as $1,000 increase in your base salary. The policy outlines that those classes have to be pre-approved prior to taking them by the building principal and the superintendent. Then the policy also outlines that those classes have to be completed and transcripts in the district office by September 15th for consideration for that contract year. If they come in post September 15th, that would still qualify you for the compensation, but just in the next contract year. So the board has invited this discussion to consider whether or not to suspend that due to outstanding circumstances in our world and COVID and other things, and whether or not you should suspend that for this year. And then those who maybe missed that deadline might qualify for that increase to their base salary in this year rather than waiting until next contract year. That policy, those things are outlined inside this policy, and that's the policy that's before you this evening.
So it's a one-time suspension for this year. Then it goes back to how it
That's
was
up to
next
the
year.
board, however
That's
long they
up to the
would-
board.
Yeah. Well, I would like to make a motion by suspending policy GCBA for this year due to the circumstances that are surrounding this crazy COVID year. And so with that, I'd like to motion to suspend, and I'd like to thank staff members who do go out and continue their education and to better themselves personally and professionally. So with that, I thank you.
I'd like to second the motion.
Was this, were the issues we had due to COVID? I mean, we're suspending this because of COVID?
I'm
Is that what
suspending.
I'm understanding?
Well, my motion is to suspend it for this year because I do know that one certified teacher's transcripts did not come in enough time to meet the deadline. I believe it was September 30. Am I correct by that?
September 18th.
September 15, and we received it 10 to 15 days late. I believe that with people working at home, with all the circumstances surrounding COVID, we don't know why it was 2 weeks late. I believe that teacher did her due diligence to try to get those transcripts to the district office in enough time and meet the deadline. But unfortunately, because we don't know why, it did not come in time. So with that, I would like to suspend it for her and for whomever else may fall under that category.
So how many people do we have applying for this or involved in this?
Vanessa can speak directly to that.
So the initial communication goes out on the letters of intent, which go out in February of every year. And
The notice of deadlines and all that.
well, on the letter of intent, they declare I'm planning to do this and they sign it. And as previously being in HR, I handled that. So on a given year, I get 8 to 15 requests that this person's going to do that. And I follow up with them, you know, when you complete the classes to go ahead and, because we have to make the pay change the following school year, which is usually August. We get, you know, I'm getting all the final transcripts, and then September we do the payroll change.
So how many said they were going to do it? How many did it?
This year there were probably 12-ish, 12 to 15 that said they were going to. And as has been the case since I've been in that, whether when I was in that position, realistically 3 to 5 complete the classes and give transcript.
And meet deadlines. So how many do we have this year that met deadlines, and how many do we have that didn't meet deadlines?
We had 5 to 6 that met the deadline, one that just wasn't able to get the final class complete and get transcripts in hand, and then the one that, I don't know, the transcripts request was made on the deadline day and came in October. So
they requested,
you would make an exception for one person.
and so the request for transcripts was made on the deadline date?
Yeah.
And therefore...
But from you to the teacher, correct?
No. The teacher requests them and they come electronically.
So the teacher requested it on the day of the deadline?
That's the turnaround time. Is
from her school?
2 to
That's what
3
I'm
weeks.
asking.
Typically, I mean, I don't know the day. I didn't look at her, but typically for electronic requests, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get them, which is about the time.
So you're saying you got it 2 or 3 weeks after the deadline, so you're assuming that the request was made somewhere around the
That
deadline.
was my assumption.
Gotcha.
And just so you guys kind of understand, when we go in to do that, we're touching payroll calendars. We don't just have one payroll calendar. We have many. When you set them, there's a lot of work that goes in. We have to, that calendar you guys just built, we have to build that out. You don't want to go in and touch it after you set it. That's why there is the date that allows us the one time at the beginning of the year to touch the calendar. And that's the only time we do that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? We can have discussion before we, after we vote. You want to
Well, there's no
discuss it
sense in
more?
discussing after we vote.
Okay.
Because then the vote's taken and it's a
Okay.
done deal.
What else do you want to discuss?
Well, I guess I really don't understand why we're suspending this.
I just
I
think
mean,
this is
for-
it's an exceptional year.
That's
I've thought
exactly
about
why.
this a lot because I can definitely understand the need to stick to deadlines and the need to stick to our, the way we do things. And is it fair to the people who are able to make the deadline
It's
if we
not.
make an exception? But I think most of those people wouldn't mind if this grace is extended to someone. I think we always talk about what's most important to our district, and it's the kids. But I feel very strongly that when we support our teachers, that's one of the best ways we can support our kids. And I feel like
So are we
we
willing
need to be sticking to the letter of our policies, but we also need to stick to to what the meaning behind them is. And the fact is, she still did get the education. So I don't know the reason why she didn't make the request for the transcript, but do you remember September? Do you remember how September felt? Do you remember how hard it was for the teachers? So she forgot something. I think we should be able to extend that grace that we would want the entire country to be doing to everyone. And we have the power to make this exception for this extenuating circumstances of a year. And so if it's not that someone at the transcript office was working from home, if it's just that she didn't get around to it because it's crazy this year, I'm okay with extending that grace. And I hope that the rest of you are too.
I concur.
My worry would be that every single policy now, you're going to have somebody.
And that's why I said I
hardship.
thought about this a lot because we don't, I can see how it can descend into chaos.
If
every single time someone misses something, we make an exception, it can be chaos. So I would like to ask our staff and teachers to please do not take this as we can now just do whatever and ask nicely and they'll make exceptions all the time. Please do as best as you can to stick to schedules, and we're not always going to be able to do this. But I think this year especially is more important than ever to be understanding and compassionate.
So can I just add one thing? Because specifically, you're talking about my communication that wasn't, like I said, the initial communication with the teacher and the letter of intent is February. I send out periodic, hey, where you at? which I did with the person in question in April and May, and then I transitioned to the business manager. So September was like the last reminder, but there was previous reminders. So I would just like to question, if you're allowing this exception, does that open the business office to anyone and everyone that may or may not have these to come in by June 30, which would be very difficult for me to go touch the pay calendar?
So would you rather see a motion that just states for this one individual and just make an exception for her and continue with the policy as is, but we're just making an exception for one individual? What would you rather see? What would sit better with you?
Yeah, I mean, because I don't want to reopen it, because there's a reason why we do that.
Understand, but I think, it looks like this is going to go through. So I'm asking you, how would you prefer to have a motion? Would you rather see a suspension of the complete policy, or would you rather us make an exception for this person due to extenuating circumstances?
I would go with the exception versus extending the policy.
Rather than suspending the policy?
Right, suspending
Okay.
the policy.
So are you okay with removing your motion?
It was your motion, I seconded.
Or the second? Well, the second is what I meant to say.
Sure, I'll remove my second.
And I'll remove my motion, and I will make a motion to suspend the policy for the teacher. Do I need to say her name?
You can't.
Okay, so for the teacher that we are discussing, and allowing her to have the movement of her education salary and her non-step step, and giving her grace for this, and just suspending it for her only this year. And that is for policy GCBA.
I'll second, but I also want to make clear that we don't want to make the administrators' lives and work jobs way harder than they need to be. So I appreciate everything you do, and I'm not saying that anyone did anything wrong at any point. I was not there, do not know. I don't want it to seem like we're saying you guys didn't do your job appropriately. So please don't take it that way.
And I don't mean that by my motion either. My motion is just basically because I think it's a crazy year.
Yeah.
And I too believe that we need to extend grace. And sometimes extenuating circumstances do come up, and we have to make exceptions for that. That is our job. So, I know it puts you out, Vanessa, and I'm sure it puts Abby out. And I'm sorry for that, but I still think that this is the best thing to do.
I believe in grace too, but I also believe in professionalism, and I hope we're a professional organization. I work for a professional organization that this would not be an issue. And so as much as I believe in grace and helping to, help people out as much as possible, I think this just opens us up to continued requests like this. And if we were to deny one and accept another, we end up not being fair, not treating everyone the same. Whereas if we make policy and we stick to policy, for the most part, we don't have issues.
Well, I agree with that. Probably 95% of the time, I do still believe that is what our role is. And when extenuating circumstances are brought to us, we're a 5-member board for a reason, so that we can make decisions on that. And, the majority of 3 rules, right? And so I believe sometimes that we are going to have to look at these. I don't want to make it a habit either, John, but I do believe sometimes that there are times when we're going to have to do that. And I thank Shad for bringing it to us and giving us the opportunity to look at it and delve into it and talk about it.
And this was a formal document. I mean, the classes are done, so we were really just waiting on paperwork. It's not like they were trying to finish a class in November to get the step up. Grant?
I agree with what Kelly's saying and what Lamista is saying, but in my mind, my day job kind of has a little light going off in the back of my head that I'm worried about us making one exception for a policy. I think that could be problematic for us as a district. So I want to ask Vanessa, if instead of saying that we're going to keep the policy in place and, you know, make this one exception for this individual, would it make more sense if we just altered the policy this year for the deadline to October 31st, and then anybody who got their paperwork in by October 31st would meet the criteria of the policy? Would that be a better way to? Would that still allow the individual who we're discussing to get the compensation and then close off the ones that you're kind of worried about with the floodgate?
Yes.
Okay, so I would recommend personally that we would change the motion from allowing this person to be paid and just say that we would like to extend the deadline in the policy from September 18th to October 31st, if that would be the appropriate date, just so that we're staying in line with our policy and that we're actually giving an extension of the deadline. And I'll go back to, you know, like we talked about this in our study session earlier today, you know, and I know Lamista touched on this a little bit as far as, you know, what it was really like at the beginning of the school year. We are one of only a handful of schools who really started full in-person on August 17th in this area, right? Like a lot of other districts, they did a hybrid model, and we went in person, and we also had an online, fully in campus online one, and we also had a distant learning one. And at the time of this, when this deadline happened, and I don't know what happened previously last year, you know, I know we went into COVID kind of lockdown in early March, and things were kind of crazy. But in between August 17th and end of September, I know a lot of our teachers were trying to do a different version of the distant learning that we currently are in now. And it was very time consuming and very cumbersome. And so we had a very great board study session where we came and we were able to understand kind of the problems with that. And then I know Mr. Housley and his administrative team went back and they went to work and they were able to kind of fix that problem. But the time frame that we're talking about really happened during that time period for me, when I know a lot of teachers were working late, you know, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, responding to emails and doing videos and all that kind of stuff. So I don't want to go and do an exception to a policy, but I would like to give a little bit of deference, because we are dealing with people, we're dealing with humans, and we can do that, right? Like that's why we live in a small community like this, and we kind of know, everybody knows who we're talking about, who we're not supposed to say their name and all that kind of stuff, right? We all know each other, and that's why we want to be neighborly, we want to be kind and stuff like that. And so that's would be my recommendation as a board member, and also I kind of dabble in practicing law in the daytime, so I figure probably better and safer if we did something like that.
You're killing me.
So you want to leave it
Okay.
change it for a third
I
time?
would concur. If Brant wouldn't have said that, I would have asked for you to table it and confer with the lawyer, because you, in the motion, is inherently a bias that you're creating. So we would need to confer.
So I'll make a
And I
third
didn't go
motion.
Can you let's just clean this up? Can you just remove
Okay,
your
I
motion
take
and
my
you remove your
motion
second?
off
I
the
remove
table.
my second.
And I will make the motion. How about that?
Perfect.
Is
I
that
love
okay?
that. Thank you.
Okay, I would motion that we would extend the deadline that is contained in policy GCBA from September 18th to October 31st, 2021, and that this would be a one-time thing that we would
2020.
2020, excuse me. Thank you, John. And that we would extend that deadline for this previous year.
I'll second
it.
that motion. I appreciate.
Any further
Sorry, I
discussion?
stepped all over you.
You are fine.
You had plenty of motions.
Yeah.
You're second. You can second. She can second. I'm okay with that.
No, let John second.
I
I'm fine.
insist you second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 7.1, bond update. Mr. Housley.
Madam President, there's nothing to report at this time.
Item 7.2, discussion of cybersecurity grant. Mr. Housley, are you talking, or is Mr. Clark?
I'd like to invite Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark has worked very diligently on this, and I think he's super excited. So I want you to hear it in his voice.
Well, darn it. things were progressing, and I was starting to hope that I wasn't on the agenda. So, we at the admin or the board retreat, I did briefly mention some items about data security in the school district, and I have a development to report on that. The Arizona Department of Administration saw a need and an opportunity to pull all of the resources in the state, school districts, municipalities, county government, pull them all together and to purchase cybersecurity products and get discount rates because of that purchasing power. And that would allow them to create a grant and to bring some products to smaller organizations like our school district that normally we could not afford. And Vanessa received, she heard about the grant just a few months ago, and I applied for it, and we were awarded and are receiving access to 3 different cybersecurity products because of that grant. Those products are an antivirus product called Falcon by CrowdStrike. I have to pronounce that purposely because I try to do it like a 4th grader, like CrowdStrike. But Falcon is considered, right now the top tier antivirus that's out there. It uses artificial intelligence to scan for new threats and to head them off immediately. And it's generally, like I said, a very expensive product, and not many school districts are able to get it because of that. Whoever had this idea at the state level, I'd like to meet them and thank them, because it is a pretty amazing product. It also does automatic remediation. So when it detects something brand new, it will send that file to the Falcon servers to analyze it, and then that's when the artificial intelligence comes in and it tries to figure out what this new piece of malware is doing, and then it will automatically take care of it on our machine. So, and then just send us an email letting us know what it did. The grant also gives us access to security professionals at the state level, so that if there is something that happens that we don't know how to deal with, we can tap into that higher level of expertise on that. The second item is two-factor authentication. It adds two-factor authentication to items that don't normally have it. And what two-factor authentication is that you can't log into something without, part of the login process, you get a code sent to your telephone, your cell phone, so that code is different every time you log in, so that it's just a much thicker layer of security. We are not planning on using that district-wide. I think if our teachers had to go through that process every time they logged into their Gmail, they would go insane. So we're just planning on using it, especially for my office, because technology personnel are a real target for hackers. They really would like to get our credentials. And then we're also going to use it for district office positions, because they handle personnel records, financial records, stuff like that. So we'll use it on a limited basis for people that really have access to that sensitive stuff. And then the third product is called Know Before, and it is a cybersecurity awareness training program, and it's pretty neat because what we do is we can add some different components into our email infrastructure. And as staff are reporting phishing or any email that they find suspicious, it analyzes not only the email that they reported, but the staff behavior. Did they open the email before they reported it? Did they open it and click on a link that was in the email before reporting it? And based on that activity, they will automatically be enrolled into a training program to address any of that behavior that wasn't good. And that just all happens automatically. Once we're done with the setup, it'll just kind of keep track of those phishing emails, and I think our awareness of what to do with suspicious emails will go up as a result. That is probably our biggest, that's the one that scares me. There's been many school districts that have paid huge sums of money out for as a ransom to get access back to their files, simply because somebody clicked on a link in an email. And so, and this program also uses artificial intelligence to know that, to make a bit of a prediction about the end user if they need to further training on cybersecurity or not. So those are the three programs that we're rolling out. And like Chad said, I'm very excited about it. It's, the trust is our insurer, and I've had many conversations with the trust about phishing and our exposure to that. They tell me that whenever one of their insurees gets hit with one of these ransomwares, the cost to recover from that starts at $5 million.
Wow.
And so it would be, I know Vanessa's struggling with the budget right now. It would, if we took $5 million out of that would be
would
pretty
really
bad.
cry.
So this is something I'm very excited about.
If you know Hal, he's excited. That's about as excited as he gets about a Def Leppard concert too. But
His excitement is so infectious. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to sleep tonight.
talking in front of you is not his favorite, but ransomware is a real thing. And what pointed this out to me a couple years ago, Hal can clarify the experience, but he took an old laptop and he disconnected the network from our current firewalls, and he plugged it into that old laptop. And within seconds, how many hits did you have that were attacking our network?
Actually, it only took 30 seconds for someone to completely compromise that laptop. And it was in such a state that I didn't even try to wipe the hard drive. I just took it out and threw it away and started over with the new hard drive.
So when they wonder, are schools under attack?
I
Yes.
think this
Yeah.
just happened to Flagstaff like a year ago,
Yeah,
didn't it?
Flagstaff had to shut down for a couple days. There was school districts in the valley and some in southern Arizona that all had varying levels of attacks from ransomware.
We can, on our firewall, we can pull up a live log of what's going on at that particular time. And you can see all the different attacks that are being thwarted. And you can barely read them before they scroll out of the page, because, that's why it only took 30 seconds for somebody to compromise that laptop, is because they were already trying to attack us when I circumvented it.
How long is the grant?
I don't know for sure, but I did read a press release that they do have a long-term funding commitment. They didn't say the exact number of years, but they did say they have a long-term funding commitment.
And some
Can you
people,
let us know if you find that out?
Yes.
some people wonder, well, why are the things, some of the things seem inconvenient, like the passwords and stuff like that. Some of those things are actually audited when we have our tech department audited. They're audited and required to have those things in place. So while they seem inconvenient and why do we have to have those, there are reasons for that, and it is part of the auditing process also. So this helps us to bolster those audits too.
Have any other questions?
Mr. Cook?
No, go on ahead.
Oh,
No,
I was just
please.
going to thank you for, I'm sure writing a grant proposal wasn't the most fun thing, so thank you for doing that. And thank you to Ms. Beecroft as well for bringing your attention to it. I'm glad we were able to do that. Wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
I'll entertain a motion for item 7.2.
Do we need one, or is that just a discussion?
Because it's
Do we
a
need- is it
grant,
discussion?
we should
7.2 is
have
just
to.
a discussion.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. 7.3,
Sign up.
approval of authorized signers on the district checking accounts. Mr. Housley and Mrs. Beecroft.
This is Mrs. Beacon.
Okay. I think this is just a formality. Once a year, we bring for your approval the district's banking services. We bank with National Bank here in Show Low. Mr. Housley, myself, and Christine Dunlap from AP, we're the signers for the district.
I make motion to approve the authorized signatures as presented.
Motion, a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 7. Approval of lease agreement for district office.
So with the recent fire in the district office on February 1st, the trust, our insurance carrier, is going to help us get into a temporary office space. We have located a suitable location for that on Clark. I think it's 541 North Clark Road. And the lease agreement would begin on February 15th. And it's initially for 6 months, and then it is able to be renewed on a month-to-month basis. Want more details?
I just want to, the leaseor of this, I called, we visited some properties. We had a local real estate agent helping us look at some properties. We assessed their feasibility and whether they would meet our needs as a district office. I reached out to this individual and kind of told him our deal. I don't deal in commercial property very often, but he said typically a 3 to 5 year lease is a commitment, is what leaseors are looking for. And he heard our story and said, I just want to be super helpful. So whatever you need, you let me know. And I shared the terms that the insurance company recommended, because they figured that the building will probably be done in a year. So 6 months with a month-to-month after that is what they recommended. And he was open to that. Didn't even take a lot of discussion. He said, sure, anything I can do to help you, just let me know. And it's been a good process to work with them, and appreciate it.
Will they pay for the rent for the entire time?
The trust, yes.
Okay, so they don't have a deadline of when they would stop paying that?
The only thing that they gave us, and Vanessa can clarify this a little bit if she wants, but they said if we told you that it was going to be done in a year and you got an 18-month lease and we were done in a year, you would be on the hook for the 6 months. right? If it took us 13 months, we would pay for the 13th month, but you're on the hook for the rest because you overestimated. So that's why they wanted to go month to month after 6 months.
Okay. Vanessa, that's how you interpret
Yeah,
it
yeah.
as well?
The insurance company, of course, is the less amount, the better. So yeah, she anticipated initially 6 to 8 months with kind of a cap at 12 months. But they haven't assessed the building yet to see what that
How long
overall
it
is going to be yet. So
Right.
that's just a good start.
I'm just sad that we couldn't find something that would work closer to the district as far as the schools. You know, I always have found safety in the district office being on school property because first we can, you know, serve the students and staff and the community kind of at a centralized location. But secondly, you were fit. So I knew that if there was something that happened at the junior high, high school, or Whipple Ranch, if you had to, you could run and be there within 3 minutes. Me, no, but you, yes. You know, so that always kind of brought some.
I'll drive real fast if they won't pull me over on Old Linden.
Good luck.
But so that's.
You can still run.
You can still run.
Yeah. But anyway, that was why I was hoping we could find something, you know, that we could bring in. Like I know you had looked at some trailers that modulars that the city was willing to give to us. And I was thinking, well, man, that would be kind of sweet if we could put it on property somewhere. But
that was a consideration that we gave strong consideration to. However, when they, if the trust looked at how much it costs to move and relocate and establish those buildings so that they meet code and can actually be occupied versus so let's just play it out. You move those buildings, you put them on a piece of property, in 2 months we're in them, and 3 months later we're moving back out of them to get into our new building. So the feasibility of that and the cost of doing that, because all the codes, the ADA compliance, all the sewer, electrical, and easements all have to be worked. So it wasn't a real simple solution. So at $2,000 a month, it comes out cheaper than that would have. We would have had to be in this lease agreement for several years in order to make up for the.
let me see.
You have to make any improvements to this space?
No. Just put our beautiful faces in there.
Burnt up furniture.
Find some furniture.
You didn't get Mr. Weston find you any furniture?
We actually have had a lot of districts reach out to us and say we have some stuff. And Sanders Unified provided some stuff, and so did Window Rock. Our friends in the Valley have also reached out. SFB has a surplus area that we can pick up some other stuff. As soon as the trust assesses whether it can be salvaged or destroyed, then they'll give that list to Vanessa and she can start to order replacements. And so everything is just real temporary, right? So as soon as we get that, she can order, and whatever the turnaround is, we can replace it with the newer stuff and then get that back to our friend.
Is there any more discussion?
I was just going to say that, you know, if there was a way that you could extend gratitude from the board for them being willing to do that, because that's really out of the norm. That 6 month and month to month is just,
Especially for a commercial lease.
yeah. And the fact that they did that because they knew we were in need and they wanted to be part of the solution is really appreciated.
Absolutely.
It was very kind.
I make a motion.
I'll move to approve the lease agreement for the district, temporary district office.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion? Motion passes. Item. Oh dear, sorry guys. 8. You're in a hurry to get home, Brad?
Yeah.
Let's do them individually.
I've been up since 4 this morning.
Item 8.1 through 8.4
I
consent
don't
agenda.
touch it. No.
So for your review and approval tonight, we have the ratification of all the expense vouchers for the last month. 8.2, the ratification of payroll vouchers. 8.3, the approval of January's board meeting minutes. And 8.4, the approval of donation.
I'll motion we approve the consent agenda with, again, if you'd extend gratitude for the donation.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 9, adjournment.
To adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.